Hi,
Hi.
it's Christina and Bill from Sovereignty Lab. And we just wanted to do a little bit of an update. And I'm holding the tripod because we wanted to pan around and show like the big, huge accomplishment. And Bill, I'll let you tell about what this is because it's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
So we had someone that had torn out a barn or a deck or something like that, but it was a lot of cedar wood, and
Aromatic cedar.
yeah, so it smells like cedar. And we spent a couple of days moving the cedar, a day or so, whatever it was, over here. But it had still all the nails in it. So I spent this past week getting the nails out of there, which was no small task. And then some of the wood had been on the ground, some had ants in it, some got wet, different things like that. So it's like sorting through all of it, figuring out what we're going to do with it, because cedar is really valuable wood to have. And we're going to use that to build a sauna, part of it to build the greenhouse. And we're also, as we were going through it, realizing some of the wood is kind of a little bit rotted, have ants in it, that we'll use it for building raised beds, because, well, they'll be moving in that direction anyways.
Right.
So we kind of made different piles, and stuff up against the garage over there is wet, and the stuff underneath these that's dry, and we have the tin on it to keep it dry. So it's just like little things, little bits of organization of this wood, so we can utilize it. What else? We had the conversation. We had a friend of ours, Native American elder out of Charlotte. We had a conversation with him about what we're doing here, and in the next couple months he's going to start coming hanging out with us for 2-3 days in a row, and we're going to be working on different projects, doing bow building and flint knapping, arrow making, fire building, all sorts of stuff. We're going to utilize the primitive camp in the woods and the sweat lodge that we have in the woods. And so yeah, a lot of it is around wood that we've been working on, getting things organized outside. So there's that.
Yeah, and we've gotten rid of some stuff and been working on organization in the house and out here, and every little bit and little piece just makes it opens the roads. It just makes everything feel so much clearer. And like there's the energetic piece to that happening is like your mind calms down, like your inner vision, your knowing, your like just trajectory of your days like are clear and more focused, because there's not so much noise.
Yeah, it's a balance between masculine, feminine, moving forward, pulling back, taking in information. And there was past couple months we spent a lot of time getting things like this cedar and the bees, a lot of the wood that we got from power line, and moving it over to build the terraces over there. And now that was getting things, and now it's implementing those things that we've gotten to utilize it. And I think that's where people get hung up, is they either going forward too fast with blinders on and blowing by all the red flags or the things that in your life is saying, oh, slow down.
Right.
And then the other time you can get frozen in the feminine, taking too much information in and then not acting, not implementing those things. So it's finding the balance between those two, based on how things are showing up. So,
and the thing about getting rid of stuff and getting organized, like I see a lot of people like just kind of like get rid of everything, and they go tiny living and try to like take these extreme steps to get quiet in their life. And I think that that's kind of an extreme measure. That's almost like an extreme trauma response, and for some people, not for everybody.
there's
but
a remedy for that.
There's definitely remedies for that. But that's actually a bigger conversation I want to go into sometime, because it's something that's been coming up for me a lot with, the post-stroke recovery. is not going too far into like the opposite of what I was doing as the solution, but like seeing how I can just take little small pivots to make that shift instead of just throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
And we've been kind of talking about this some too, so.
Well, it's that piece, like, I think there's an energetic disconnect we have, like with when I was growing up. When you were growing up, there was cursive. We learned to write cursive, which was essentially connecting the dots. A line is made up of a series of dots. So when you're writing cursive, you're connecting all of those dots and you're integrating the left brain, right brain part of who you are. When we move to printing, it's like we're drawing a line, we're picking it up and creating another line and picking the pen up and creating another line. And it's gone to the extreme where it's like we're not even making lines, we're just pressing buttons on a keyboard. And what happens is I think there disconnects an aspect of who we are as humans that see the connections with things. And what Christina's talking about with the, selling everything and getting into a tiny home or whatever that is, the extreme thing. And I was guilty of it. I did it a bunch of times in my life. But seeing how it's not a drastic course correction, it's just like,
Small
1
tweak.
degree, 1 degree, 1 degree. And it guides us along because we're here on a specific trajectory for a reason.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we make that big shift, that big change, it's to change the things in the direction that we were going, but we change it so drastically that we lose the purpose, the direction, the understanding of what we've learned along that path.
Yeah, like this weekend, we decided to go to one of the big farmers markets that we hadn't been to in a long time. And there was a lot of people there, and there was a lot of stuff to look at.
It was like the scene in The Matrix, the woman in the red dress.
Right.
That's what it was like
It
for
was.
us.
And so I find myself after a couple minutes, like starting to feel total overwhelm and like the pre-stroke type of feeling where the brain hurts and like, like almost like a mild panic. And I'm like, wait a minute, I am not giving up so freaking easily. What am I doing that I can shift right now? Because the biggest lessons from the stroke recovery or post-stroke recovery for me has been the discernment of like what is too much and what I need to just make that little pivot and just not give my time and attention to. And it doesn't have to be a big shift. So at the market, I realized, like, when I asked the question, like, what am I doing that I can quickly shift right now? And one of them, the first thing I noticed was I wasn't breathing. So
Minor detail.
Yeah, minor detail. So I started breathing deep, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm paying attention. I love to people watch, but like this wasn't something I could do in this moment. So I was putting so much attention into looking at what everything else was doing, which was like the woman in the red dress. It's like window shopping.
Do a Google or do a YouTube search on The Matrix, woman in the red dress, and that you'll totally see what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so pretty much everything was like that. Rather than just, and the solution wasn't to leave and to completely give up and be like, I can't handle being public. It was to stay focused on what we came for, on looking at the vendor stuff, not getting too engaged in conversations. Keeping my breath, keeping my body loose and relaxed, and just to, try that little pivot. And yeah, that was super helpful because I found that I was able to push myself enough while still respecting the self-care that I needed. And that was huge. That was really huge.
Last week, was it last week? Wait, what is
Depends
this?
on what you're
What
talking
is
about.
today?
I don't
What
even
is
know.
today?
Today's Sunday,
Right.
the
well,
7th of August.
When did we get the honey? Was it last week?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So ended up the bees that just came into the equation about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
The way I learned out, it's been an incredible learning curve, like very, very steep. We ended up out of the 2 hives getting 6 gallons of honey, which is like, how the hell did that happen? Which is kind of cool. So Christina's been working on these things called oxymels, which are Go ahead.
So we're taking the pear vinegar that we made last fall from the pears that were harvested from a local gentleman's land in Burnsville. He couldn't take care of his pear trees, and Bill went and cleaned up everything and brought home
He
legs.
was in his mid to late 80s, so he didn't want to deal with the pears or yellow jackets or the bald-faced hornets or any of that stuff, and he just wanted the pears out of the yard. So I showed up and cleaned everything up. And
Yeah, so we ended up with
took the pears.
a ridiculous amount of pears. So the cast-offs and stuff, we made the pear vinegar. So we had gallons and gallons and gallons of vinegar.
Sauce, pear vinegar. Yeah. So
And-
we had all this pear vinegar. What are we going to do with it?
And we have honey, and we're like, well, I just learned about oxymels, and oxymels
It's
are,
like a tonic.
yeah, and you can put different medicinal herbs and roots and things in there to give them specific purposes,
Healing properties.
like anti-inflammatory or anti-anxiety or like
Men's
immune
vitality.
boosting, immune vitality. Yeah, I
Grow
did
hair in
one,
your teeth or whatever.
a refreshing one. So I've been having fun playing with those, and yeah, they're
So we used the honey and the vinegar that had been there. So we didn't, it wasn't like we started a new project. It was like connecting the dots from the vinegar that we had in the fall with
right.
the honey that just entered into the equation and connected it back with the vinegar.
And even better, most of the herbs and things that I put in there were grown on the land.
Yeah. So we're connecting
So-
those dots, and it's all
Yeah.
going into, I think there's, as you stack these functions, these things that you put your energy into with the energy you put into growing the things on the land, and it just increases the vibration, it increases the connection, it increases the healing capabilities, because there's that belief that we're connected with all these things, or at least we have that belief. And when the stuff is growing from the land that you're living on, you're putting that energy into, it's going to increase exponentially in terms of how it's going to help
Yeah.
what you have going on. So that was the honey and the oxymels and the chickens.
Yeah, if I could,
What was it?
I can't flip the camera around, but there's one of our chickens is walking around in front of us.
Well, we had, what we were doing, and this ties in with the bees, because we wanted to put an electrified fence around the bees, because we got bears, and we wanted to protect the chickens, because we had these, had them in an enclosed area that was known as like a deep mulch bedding. So I'd put wood chips in there, and the chickens would scratch around and eat the bugs and all that stuff in the wood chips and poop on the wood chips, and then we could use the wood chips, we could use that as it decomposed to build the garden beds, connecting the dots with all
Right,
of it. There
right.
wasn't anything wasted. And we wanted to change the coops, so we would have one coop that would be producing very great egg-laying birds. We'd have another coop that would be producing meat-producing birds.
Be primary meat birds, but
Meat
they
birds.
also do give some eggs.
Yeah, they do give some
So-
eggs. And then the other, we would take all the other chickens and put them in a fenced-in area, electrified fenced-in area with the ones that we hatched earlier this year. So there was, I think it was this week, we did that transition of the chickens, and it was like chaos, like crazy chaos, like Royal Rumble in the yard, where roosters and hens, it was pretty nuts, because we had them all just kind of reorganizing, and we probably, looking back on it, hindsight, going a little bit slower in the transition, but it was like I was moving some hens over, and then one of the roosters got in another pen, and now he's fighting with that rooster, so I had to get the rooster.
Yeah, I had a
over
lot of
there.
communities coming together and
Yeah.
trying to integrate, and then the
Looked like a
problem.
prison. It looked like a prison yard.
But the yard's really big, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of open space for them. And so as they've adjusted, they seem really happy. But
Yeah.
what was happening is they were getting on top of the coop and flying out into the Rose of Sharon
That
trees.
still happened. That
And
still
the
happened.
littlest ones, the ones that we hatched here, they were born in May, like early May.
June, July, okay.
I saw one the other day when I was picking stuff out of the garden. She squeezed herself right through the fence,
Yeah.
like the hole in the fence, and this was sold as chicken fence.
Yeah.
So,
Just not for small chickens.
right.
Bigger chickens, like turkeys.
And she didn't get electrocuted or anything, and I'm like
Well,
thinking,
it's not to electrocute them, it's to shock them.
well, to shock them, that's what I meant. Yeah, and you know, you see birds sit on power lines all the time, and they're insulated because of the feathers and the hollow feet. And I'm like, well, maybe that's the thing with them. So, but you know, most of them are staying in now. It's just about, you know, trimming back some more stuff, and then that fence the electrification will connect to the bees.
Yeah, we got to connect that this week. Now that we got all the wood done, the wood's good,
Yeah.
and we'll connect the electricity from the chickens to the bees. We'll get the bee thing taken care of, and then next Saturday, I don't think I told you about this yet, we're gonna go out and get that second hive and move it back here.
Nice.
So
Nice.
that hive will be here, and yeah, so it's been a lot. It's been good. It's been busy, and yeah, things are coming together. And I think the big thing that's taken place is like the energetics of the people that we're interacting with. That's been huge. Like we had a few months ago, there was all that craziness with her TIAs and mini strokes or constellation of effects, whatever we were going to call it, and then seeing that energetically things weren't in coherence, so we needed to shift that within ourselves.
Yeah.
And get quiet and pull back in and take care of what we needed to take care of, and that has shifted our community.
Yeah, it was interesting who showed up for us and realized that, you know, when you have TIAs, like that's a major fucking life event. Okay, like that's major.
Especially if she swears about it.
It shakes everything up.
With
And
a capital U.
yeah. And so I think, you know, it was just nice to see, it was interesting to see who showed up and who didn't.
Yeah. And it's not a big deal. It's not a judgment about it. It's just understanding where the pivot is. And I think there's this place in our life where it's like we want to make things work with people or situations or jobs or relationships or whatever that is. And the more we double down and we try, you know, if we try a little harder, it'll work, right? Right? No, it doesn't. So it's about, for us, it's been about pulling back and seeing what the lesson was to be learned in that, and then kind of being quiet and seeing where things begin to move as a result of being in that quiet place. And that's not meaning we're sitting on our asses not doing anything. There's plenty of stuff to work on. It's, you know, her working on her pharmacy, or me working on stuff in the yard, or picking weeds, or taking care of the animals, or whatever that is. But it's not continually going out. It's not continually doing things. It's not continually reaching out.
Outside of yourself.
There you go. Outside of yourself.
Yeah, it really landed the other day. It was like, wow, you know, it's really just reaching into ourselves and doing those, like, it doesn't land for people when you say like deep levels of self-care. Like it doesn't, like, it's not descriptive enough. So some other video we'll talk about that a little bit more. But
it's not sitting on your ass and drinking Mai Tais on the beach.
Or going to ecstatic dance, you know, all the time.
Ecstatic dance,
I love
drum circles, or
right, because you know, like, yeah, you can dance in your kitchen.
Well,
you can dance in your bedroom. You don't have to keep reaching outside of yourself. You know,
it's the thing to think. It's the thing that keeps you busy, making you think you're actually doing something or changing the pattern.
Right, and I don't mean to just, we always say ecstatic dance because like we see so many, oh my God, there's so many ecstatic dances all the time. So
everybody wants to be a DJ.
Right. Or a body worker, you know.
That's right. Those body workers.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, it's
somatic experiencing.
Becomes really imperative to just reach deeply into ourselves for those levels of authenticity where we know that we're in alignment, because we don't have imposter syndrome, because we're really getting things straight. You know, that really brings up when we're not in alignment, then those anxiety, the imposter syndrome, the, you know, just feeling like something's off and you've got to go searching for it, like that's when it kicks in. Homeopathy can help with that.
What is that thing? What is the term? Cultural appropriation. I think that's where there's an identification of cultural appropriation, because people are trying to, they're not connected with themselves. So they go to reach out to another culture that's not in alignment with who they are. What's in their lineage, their ancestry, or whatever that is, they try to, it's like, oh, I want this other culture, and they take these things that isn't lined up with them, that they're trying to contrive that experience, and you can tell, and it's getting more, well, at least for us, it's more apparent that someone is full of shit.
And this is not a criticism. This is like, we've been there, done that. We've, you know, wrote the book on it, wrote the cliff notes.
We got the t-shirt anyways.
Got the t-shirt for sure. And the thing that's so appealing to other religions, other cultures, you know, things that are like way older, like Hinduism, or, you know, the Native American communities, or the Yoruba tradition, or, you know, insert whatever that it is that appeals to you, is that they're old. So they have history and they have structure. And so a lot of what we're needing is structure that comes from the masculine, because it gives us something to sink into and something to relax into. When we don't have structure, the feminine aspects of us go absolutely nuts. We don't have the containment that we need to.
That's why so many people are spinning around. There isn't a grounded, structured about, there isn't the chop wood, carry water, get up and do the things each day. And that's where a lot of people are kind of finding themselves in an eddy, like a cork in a toilet. It just keeps spinning and doesn't go down. And when you have that structure, when you get to that focus of, and I really believe that focus comes with connection with the land, connection with nature, understanding the universal principles and things, you could begin letting go of that structure to some degree, and then things just start flowing in that, because you have that structure that you're coming from.
And this is where homeopathy is so beautiful, and it integrates
shameless plug
into our lives so well, because it helps with these areas that are almost indescribable, that they don't ever seem to fully resolve with the methods that we try, whether, you know, it's like whatever it is that you're trying to bring that structure and that healing to your life. Like the homeopathy can just kind of like...
Tell them you have a complete homeopathic pharmacy?
I have a complete homeopathic pharmacy.
And do you tell them that you're still organizing all those?
I am still organizing.
You tell them about all the different remedies you have?
I think we've talked about it in another video.
Talk about homeopathy? Okay. I think we're done.
He's done. I'm hungry. So guys, reach out. You can reach us through our website, sovereigntylab.com.
Subscribe to the channel. I don't know, what else do people do?
You can sign up to our newsletter.
Newsletter.
There's a link to our Telegram group.
Us. Do we have the links to people could talk with us? We have that where they schedule a time if they want to talk to you
on our
or
website. Under each of our, that structure may be changing, but right now if you go to the type of thing you're interested in, you'll see.
They'll probably want to talk to you more than they will want to talk to me.
Well, of course they would.
She'll tell you about homeopathy.
All right, guys.
You tell me you have complete pharmacy?
I don't think so.
Homeopathy can help with their dysfunction?
I don't know.
Okay.
I still haven't figured out what needs to help for yours. All right, guys. Take care.
Okay.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.